The winter 2021 anime season was undeniably one of the best anime seasons in recent memory. It was a stacked season with some amazing shows that blew everyone away. From Attack on Titan to Skate to Horimiya to Wonder Egg Priority, there was a lot to watch and a lot to talk about. So of course I was not expecting the spring season to carry on with the hype. You can imagine my surprise when I scrolled through the season's anime chart to see so many shows that are worth checking out. And I was not expecting that at all. And yeah, I'm late to the party as always, since the spring season is well underway, but somehow I managed to finally check out most of what I wanted to, which is 23 fucking shows. So yeah, let's get down to it. First up, leftovers, sequels, and reboots. Surprisingly, we don't have as many as last season, but we do have a few. First, we got a reboot in the form of a proper Shaman King adaptation, finally, done by Studio Bridge with some gorgeous animation, most of the voice cast returning from the original 2001 anime. The opening is once again a banger, and we already have 52 episodes confirmed, which will hopefully manage to do right by this series. For those that are unfamiliar with Shaman King, it's about a middle schooler, Manta, and mostly about his newfound friend Yo Asakura, a young shaman who has the ability to talk to spirits and let them possess him to use their powers. Yo has a heavy duty on his shoulders as he must become the Shaman King by winning the Shaman Fight, a tournament between shamans that happens only every 500 years. Joined by his spirit medium fiancé Anna Kyoyama, aka Best Girl, his personal samurai spirit Amidamaru, and his other friends, Yo must face a larger evil as well. How? A powerful man who aims to create a new world with only shamans by becoming the Shaman King himself. As someone who grew up with the Shaman King anime and just rewatched it last year, I do feel that the beginning of the story is being rushed through a bit, but I think that new viewers will probably not notice that all that much. And honestly, if this is what it takes to have a proper adaptation to the actual main story and ending, I'm good with it. And to be completely honest, I'm just happy we get a proper adaptation at all, and if the mangaka approved this, and he did, then this should be good. The only problem so far with this Shaman King adaptation is that it's in Netflix jail, which means that it's gonna come out later on when the whole thing is finished, so those who want to watch it legally will have to wait months, which sucks. Then, when it comes to sequels, first we got the 5th season of My Hero Academia, which appears to be winding down the endangering teenagers' lives aspect by starting off with Class A versus Class B arc, which is great, because we actually get to learn more about the characters and their powers, as if we didn't feel overcrowded enough already. But there's also some things going on in the background that have to do with Dubby, Hawks, the League of Villains, and Endeavor, so I just know shit's gonna hit the fan soon. Then we got the final season of Fruits Basket, which is 100% about to rip my heart out, cut it into pieces, then glue it all together, all janky, just so I can feel the pain for a long time to come. But I still cannot wait to feel all the feels. The animation is incredible once again. The opening and ending are so good, both musically and visually. And just getting to see the proper conclusion to this wonderful story is gonna be amazing. Then, probably my favorite sequel of the season, Zombieland Saga Revenge, aka the best idol show ever. We can catch up with our favorite zombie girls this season trying to become famous and save the Saga Prefecture, once again animated by Studio Mappa. The first 2 episodes already managed to make me cry like a baby, so I just can't wait for more. And to be honest, I'm not an idol person and I have my issues with most zombie shows as well, but this one is special and I hope you check it out. And our final sequel, which I did not think would happen, Megalobox 2 Nomad. So far, it's pretty depressing after the hype end of season 1, but the animation is just as great as the first season, and I'm loving the old school style just as much as I did back then. And I'm curious where they take this story. For those unfamiliar, Megalobox is about a guy named Gearless Joe fighting in Megalobox, which is basically boxing with robot gear that helps make your punches be stronger. In the end of season 1, Gearless Joe was the one that reigned as the champion of Megalonia, the first ever Megalobox tournament. 7 years later, Gearless Joe once again fights in the underground matches, adorned with scars and once again donning his gear, but now known only as Nomad. Speaking of sports, we got a bunch of sports anime this season which are worth checking out. First off, Bakuten or Backflip. The anime centers on a high school rhythmic gymnastics team. The story follows Shotaro Futaba, who is fascinated by gymnastics after seeing it just once in his 3rd year of middle school, and joins the rhythmic gymnastics team of his new high school, Aohai. He becomes friends with his pretty withdrawn and obvious prodigy schoolmate Ryoya Misato, who earned fame as a gymnast during middle school. Why you should watch this, you might ask? Well, it's got some cute gymnast boys with some pretty solid overall animation, some actually gorgeous sequences, and even though some stunt sequences are done in 3D CG, they're not that bad. You pretty much get used to it in like 10 seconds and it doesn't take you out of it, in my opinion at least. The anime's opening is also done by Sentimental and is a banger as all of their songs, so please check them out, or check out my given video cause they also made the songs for that anime. The story seems actually pretty wholesome so far, and there are hints of actual character depth, which is always welcome in sports anime. Oh, and did I mention cute gymnast boys? Then we got Burning Kabaddi, an anime about kabaddi, which is apparently a sport I literally never heard about before and is apparently very popular in India and its surrounding countries. It's basically a combination of tag and wrestling, to put it in the most simplest of terms, but the anime itself is about Yoigoshi Tatsuya, a former star soccer player, but when he enters high school, he severs all ties with sports, or at least that's what he thinks. Some of his schoolmates invite him, or rather trick him, into joining the high school kabaddi team, a sport where victory is achieved through teammates working together, something that's not exactly his strong suit. As I mentioned, kabaddi is a sport I never really heard about before, so it's really interesting just because of that for starters. And the anime does do a great job at explaining the sport, not just through the verbal explanations, but through the visual demonstrations as well. The character designs are not really my cup of tea. The animation is pretty okay, but there are some good comedic moments. The characters themselves do seem fun, and I definitely don't dislike the muscly anime boy thing, so that's a plus. And honestly, just learning about the sport through anime is always interesting, especially if it's something obscure like kabaddi, so I'm definitely looking forward to more and hope people don't ignore this one. We also have a football anime, or soccer for those that are American, Farewell My Dear Kramer, from Naoshi Arakawa, who previously brought us Your Lie in April, aka Cryfest the anime. After spending her middle school days playing with the boys' soccer team, Nozomi's teacher convinces her to try playing on a girls' soccer team. Meanwhile, Sumire sees her own middle school career coming to an end, and her rival Midori declares that she'll join whatever school or club team Sumire picks. After watching a practice match, they decide to play on the same team at Warabi, where Nozomi ends up as well. To all their surprise, the former Japanese women's national football team player Naoki Nomi returns to Warabi to coach the girls' soccer team. And from there, we'll follow the lives and hardships of this enormous cast of football-playing teen girls. Animation-wise, it's not that impressive so far, but it's pretty okay, and I do feel like we'll focus more on the emotions of the characters more than the actual sport itself anyway, so I don't really mind that it's not all Tsubasa-like action. The story seems interesting enough with some compelling characters, especially as someone who once dreamed of being a pro football player and played football with the boys all my childhood, just like Nozomi. This seems pretty much right up my alley. Other shows I'm interested in no particular order, we have 86, brought to us by A1 Pictures, with music by Hiroyuki Sawano and Kota Yamamoto, an anime about war, to put it as simply as possible. The Republic of San Magnolia has long been under attack from the neighboring empire's army of unmanned drones known as the Legion. After years of painstaking research, the Republic finally developed autonomous drones of their own, turning the one-sided struggle into a war without casualties. Or at least that's what the government claims. In reality, there is no such thing as bloodless war. Beyond the fortified walls protecting the 85 Republic territories lies the non-existent 86th sector. The young men and women of this forsaken land are branded as the 86 and stripped of their humanity to pilot the quote-unquote unmanned weapons into battle. The premise and the first couple episodes of this anime honestly reminded me of the Hunger Games, with the whole district idea of some districts' people being lesser than others, and also Code Geass with the same concept plus the mechs, which in this case are not humanoid, so that's at least something different. The animation overall is pretty well done. The 3D maneuvering during the fights looks really good and it doesn't take you out of it, while the music great, having Sawano and Yamamoto working on it, and you just know that this one's gonna be full of drama and pain. Tokyo Revengers, aka the Train-kun-induced time loop anime, is actually pretty good. Takemichi Hanagaki has reached the absolute pits of despair in his life. He finds out that the only girlfriend he ever had in his life, Hinata Tachibana, had been killed by a ruthless Tokyo Manji gang. The day after hearing about her death, he's standing on the station platform and ends up being pushed over onto the tracks by a herd of people. He closes his eyes thinking he's about to die, but when he opens his eyes back up, he somehow had gone back in time 12 years. Now that he's back living the so-called best days of his life, Takemichi decides to get revenge on his life by saving his girlfriend and changing himself that he'd been running away from. This one has an actually solid premise, pretty interesting character designs, and an amazing opening. This anime looks to be an emotional ride from start to finish, and I just hope they manage to adapt it all and not leave us hanging. We also have Vivi, Fluorite Eye's song. As the description goes, an AI named Matsumoto appears before Vivi, the world's first autonomous humanoid AI. Matsumoto's mission is to rewrite history together with Vivi in order to stop the war between AI and humans that will happen 1 century later. Having seen the first 4 episodes, here's my take. Now I see why Wit dropped Attack on Titan, because this looks incredible. And of course, I'm just theorizing here, I'm just guessing, I have no idea if this is true or not, but if this is why Wit Studio handed Attack on Titan over to MAPPA just to focus on this, I understand completely. The animation here, the fight sequences, some of the visuals are gorgeous and as detailed as a Makoto Shinkai movie. Real good wallpaper material. But of course the visuals are not everything, and in my honest opinion, the story can be a bit choppy at times with the time jumps that happen and skipping certain events that they only show briefly, like the death of a certain someone, which I honestly thought they'd return to and show more, but they didn't, and I'm still hoping we get a flashback of it. But overall, it looks and sounds great, and I honestly hope that it can keep up the overall quality. Into Your Eternity, a lonely boy wanders the Arctic regions of North America and meets a wolf. The two become fast friends, depending on each other to survive the harsh environment. But the boy has a history and the wolf is more than meets the eye as well. The description doesn't say much, but it's probably better that way. All you have to know is that there's this orb that's probably been sent by a god to Earth. The orb is alive. It can change forms, self-heal, and even come back to life if needed. But it is a slow learner, so it's gonna go through a lot before it manages to survive and thrive. And all I'm gonna say is that this looks great, the music's great, and that this show has one of the most depressing first episodes ever. But it's definitely worth checking out. Odd Taxi is this season's furry bait, or the most unique looking show of the season. Who knows? The taxi driver, Odokawa, lives a very mundane life. He has no family, doesn't really hang out with others, and he's an oddball who is narrow-minded and doesn't talk much. The only people he can call his friends are his doctor, Goriki, and his classmate from high school, Kakibana. All of his patrons seem to be slightly odd themselves. The college student who wants the world to notice him online, a nurse with secrets, a comedy duo that just can't catch a break, a local hoodlum, an idol group that's just starting out. All these mundane conversations somehow manage to lead to a girl who's gone missing. Honestly, this one's a lot better than expected. Probably the surprise of the season for me. It has a weird vibe that's both calming and relaxing, and mysterious and oddly dark at the same time, which just makes the show all the more intriguing to me. There's some odd jokes, haha, get it, here and there, that lighten the mood and manage to make me laugh out loud every time. In addition to that, the OP is pretty great, both visually and in terms of the song. It just sounds super chill, fitting for the feel of the anime overall, and the voice actings stand out to me, honestly. Somehow they managed to fit just the right voices to the right characters, which are animals with honestly pretty cute designs all around. And I don't know what it is about anthropomorphic animals in anime, but it just works somehow. We also have The World Ends With You, based on the 2007 Square Enix game I literally know nothing about. But according to the description, Neku awakens in the middle of Shibuya's bustling scramble crossing, with no memory of how he got there. Little does he know he's been transported to an alternate plane of existence known as the Underground. Now an unwilling participant in the mysterious Reaper's game, Neku must partner up with a girl named Shiki in order to survive. Together they complete missions and defeat monsters known as Noise, as they gradually uncover the true nature of this twisted game. Based on the first couple episodes and my non-existent knowledge of this source material, this actually seems pretty fun. The art looks like it was literally just pulled out from the game. The animation looks like an actual video game at times, which I think is a good thing. It's pretty fluid, mixing the 3D elements with the 2D ones, especially during the fight sequences. The story does seem to be a bit rushed, since I guess there's a lot of ground to cover in a probably single core anime series, but it seems worth a watch, at least for a couple more episodes, just to see if it's actually good or if it will end up like the Devil Survivor anime, another game adaptation I didn't know nothing about and ended up making zero sense. And of course, no season can go without a music anime, so this season we have Mashiro no Oto, those Snow White notes, an anime about the traditional Japanese instrument shamisen. Sawamura Matsugoro is a shamisen player of legendary talent. Upon his death, his grandson Setsu loses his ability to play. Having lost his beloved sound, Setsu finds himself in Tokyo in search of a new sound to love. Tachiki Yuna, who works at a club, hooks him up with a gig to play there as a warm-up act. Setsu imbues the sound of his shamisen with his many thoughts and feelings he has for others, still searching for his own sound and his own feelings. The shamisen, being an instrument I don't know all that much about, makes it all the more interesting to me. Just like a couple seasons ago when we had Kono Oto Tomare, which was about the koto, another traditional Japanese instrument I had very limited knowledge on, and I loved it. And while I desperately hope for a season 3 of that show, I think this one will be a pretty good replacement, a fun and emotional and educational ride for sure. And having surprisingly pretty animation with the beautiful sound of the shamisen makes it all the more enjoyable, so do look into this one. We also have Pretty Boy Detective Club, and as the title suggests, it is about a school club, a mysterious organization that's rumored to solve problems at Yubiwa Academy. The 5 members are Manabu the Estate, Michiru the Epicure, Hyota the Adonis, Nagahiro the Orator, Sosaku the Artist. To search for a star she glimpsed at 10 years ago, second-year student Mayumi Dojima calls on these 5 pretty boys to help her solve the case. put it briefly, this show is definitely pretty, so it lives up to its name, with some gorgeous pretty boys, so everyone can find a favorite, and giving off serious Ouran High School host club vibes. Plus, it's done by Akiyuki Shimbo, who worked on Madoka Magica and Monogatari. The studio is Shaft, which also worked on the same two, and it is originally written as novels by Nishio Ishin, who also wrote Monogatari. And if any of those names mean anything to you, you just know that this one's gonna be weird, with a lot of dialogue, and probably an anime to remember. Also, the opening slaps in every possible way, and it won't leave my head no matter how hard I try. Then we also got some slice of life and romance anime, like Higehiro, which has a weird title and I don't like it, so I'm not gonna say it. If you wanna know, look it up. On his way home from drinking his sorrows away after being rejected by his crush, the 26-year-old salaryman, Yoshida, finds a high school girl named Sayu sitting on the side of the road. Yoshida is completely drunk out of his mind and ends up letting Sayu stay at his place overnight. Not having the heart to put Sayu out on the streets again, since she ran away from home, Yoshida allows her to stay at his place. And so begins the awkward, irritable, and slightly heartwarming relationship between a runaway high school girl and a salaryman living together. So yeah, a 20-something salaryman and a teen girl living together. What could go wrong? Some could say it's kinda trash, focusing on the girl's sexuality a bit too much at times, with some ecchi scenes, or you could even have problems with the age gap in the show, which are both valid points to a certain extent. But if you actually watch it, you will realize that this show is not what you'd expect based on the creepy title and premise. It's pretty wholesome actually, and surprisingly serious at times. It's obvious that there's more to the story, especially on the girl's end, so I would definitely suggest giving this a fair shot, because it looks gorgeous and will probably pull at your heartstrings more than you think. Koikimo, aka 20-something salaryman and a teen girl, What Could Go Wrong Part 2. Honestly, what's with this premise this season? One rainy day, salaryman Amakusa Ryo is saved by a high school girl he doesn't know. He later finds out that the girl is Arima Ichika, a classmate of his younger sister. Ryo is somewhat of a womanizer himself, and to repay her for saving him, he suggests giving her a kiss or going out on a date with her, in which Ichika tells him that he's creepy, obviously. This, however, opens a new door for Ryo, and he falls madly in love with Ichika. Ever since then, he's trying to overly express his feelings to Ichika, who just keeps insulting him and says he's being creepy, but he just seems to take it as her way of showing affection towards him. Despite the somewhat creepy premise, once again, it's actually pretty cute and wholesome, and thankfully, the romance doesn't seem forced, despite the premise making it look so. The only gripe I have with the show so far is that visually, it's pretty simple. No flashy animation or anything, but I guess you don't really need it anyway for a story like this. But what I love about the anime is the opening. It's one of the best ones this season. So if you're in need of some cute slice of life romance, check this out. And just to add some Iyashikei to the mix, let's make a mug too. It's about Toyokawa Himeno, who together with her father, who is a former salaryman, moves to Tajimi City in the Gifu prefecture. This is the city where her mother is from, who she had lost when she was still young. Himeno is now attending her mother's old school, where her classmate Mika invites her to tag along to a special place. That place turns out to be a pottery club. There she learns for the first time that her mother was a legendary potter and is consequently pulled into the world of pottery. This show consists of only 12-minute episodes of cute girls making cute mugs, and it's just adorable so far, with some emotional scenes of Himeno coming to terms with her mom's legacy and trying to living up to her name. Visually speaking, it's really pretty and calming, mostly using faded colors and pastels, but details on the pottery and the mugs is actually really well done. And I think it's pretty educational too, so if you were ever interested in pottery, this might be for you. With the Godzilla vs. Kong hype, we also have a Godzilla anime titled Godzilla Singular Point. This series features an original story which depicts the young geniuses Mei Kamino, a female researcher, and Yun Arikawa, a male engineer, as they take on an unprecedented threat with their companions. When danger comes up from the depths, only young geniuses Mei, Yun, and their team can face the threat of Godzilla's singular point. This one's a co-production between studios Orange and Bones, which brings promise from the start, with Orange focusing on the 3D CG aspects of the monsters and all, while Bones does the 2D. The character designs are great overall, but the monsters can be a bit weird with the 3D, although its use is understandable in this case. It still looks pretty good, and also Godzilla be thick, just look at that bad boy. The biggest issue with the show though, it's currently in Netflix jail, so a lot of people will only get to see it later on, but if you do wanna watch it as it airs, you know what to do. Joran, Princess of Snow and Blood. The year is 1931. Prince Tokugawa Yoshinobu is 94 years old, holds absolute control over Japan. Remnants of the Meiji era's culture can be seen around the city, but scientific technology and Japanese esoteric cosmology on Myodo are also developing, exuding a sense of modernity. Yet, lurking behind the glitz of Kuchinawa, a dissident group planning the assassination of the prince, and effectively the fall of the regime. Tasked to extinguish these dissidents is NUE, the government's secret executioner group. Sawa Yukimura, who works for this organization, suffered from an early age at the hands of the Kuchinawa boss. Her entire family was murdered, and she dedicated her life to avenging their death. Basically, if you like stories of old Japan on the brink of industrial revolution with a hint of supernatural, this one's for you. Visually, it's incredible, especially during fights and the transformations, including the opening sequence, which is just gorgeously done. Its use of old school animation, where you can see it's actually drawn by hand, is just so refreshing. And no, I am no art or animation major or whatever, so I don't really know how to describe this all that well, but trust me, it looks so good. So far, the story is a bit vague, and given that this is book 1, it should be a long story, so we should get more info and learn to understand the world better, but we'll see how it all goes. I'm pretty happy with it so far, and I'm gonna stick with it at least until the halfway point, just to see how the story unfolds. Mars Red is another anime with old Japan on the brink of industrial revolution, but this time with vampires. It takes place in 1923, where vampires have existed for quite a while. But now the number of vampires is increasing, and a mysterious artificial blood source called Askra has appeared. The Japanese government in turn creates Code Zero, a unit within the army tasked with taking down the vampiric forces. And what better way to track vampires than by using vampires? Created by Lieutenant General Nakajima, this unit has historically been in the business of information war, but has been reassigned to solve the vampire crisis. It's up to Code Zero and the S-Class vampire Death Rot to investigate this increase and put a stop to it before society crumbles. Honestly, the concept of vampires in 1920s Japan is very compelling to me, since I like to see different historical eras of Japan, and I do like me some vampires, especially anime vampires that are kinda hot. So this is pretty much up my alley, and visually speaking, the show is very stylized, which I love, and the animation overall is so pretty and fluid. However, just like with Joran, the story hasn't really gone anywhere yet. After just 3 episodes, we're still building up the world and learning how the military and the whole vampire thing functions, but it does look promising. And finally, last but certainly not least, Yasuke. In a war-torn feudal Japan filled with mechs and magic, the greatest Ronin never known, Yasuke, struggles to maintain a peaceful existence after a past life of violence. But when a local village becomes the center of social upheaval between warring daimyo, Yasuke must take up his sword and transport a mysterious child who is the target of dark forces and bloodthirsty warlords. The story of Yasuke, the first African samurai who actually served the legendary Oda Nobunaga, will be released to the world. This show is not actually out yet, but it will be soon on April 29th to be exact, on Netflix. To my knowledge, the whole season should be out right away, which will make for a good binge watch if that's your thing. And in my honest opinion, having this show be about a legendary black samurai with Lakeith Stanfield voicing the English dub and animated by Studio Mappa, it's just perfection. What else could we ask for? And some other shows I might check out later and or might get back to later. Eden Zero, which is just fairy tale in space, but could potentially be good since I do like fairy tale. However, after one episode, I didn't really like the overuse of ecchi, so we'll see if I actually pick it up again. This one's also in Netflix jail, so most of the world will have to wait or just sail the seven seas, if you know what I mean. We also have Hetalia for those who like the stupid hijinks of personified countries. It's just 5 minutes per episode as usual, and it's cute, and it's funny, and I just know some people are gonna take it way too seriously, which alone is gonna be fun to watch. Nagatoro, which is the season's girl bullies shy nerd anime, but this time it's a tank girl, so it's okay. Honestly, I haven't checked this one out yet, but I did hear some good things about it, and I do like Nagatoro's design, so I might give it a couple episodes later on. And finally, Blue Reflection, a kinda Yuri magical girl anime with some darker tones that looks cool, but the first episode was all over the place. But given that it's supposed to be a longer anime, it could end up actually being good. I might get back to it later. And that's it. That's all the anime that I'm planning to watch this spring season. 23 anime plus the optional ones that I think are worth your time. It's definitely a lot more than I thought it would be this season. But I guess it's actually pretty good that we got so many good shows to look forward to. And even if I drop half of these or just get back to them later, I still think it's gonna be an epic anime season. And hopefully I don't burn out by the end of it. Anyway, that's it for this video, and if you find any of these recommendations interesting or if you have anything else to add, feel free to let me know down in the comments, as I'm actually curious to see what others are watching. And if you liked whatever this was, feel free to like and subscribe, follow me on Twitter for my random takes on anime and stuff. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!